The envelope sat on my desk like it didn't belong there. Cream-colored, gold lettering. My name written in handwriting I didn't recognize. I picked it up, turned it over twice before opening it, like the paper itself might explain the joke. You are cordially invited to celebrate the engagement of Madison Hale and Derek Whitfield. I read it 3 times. This has to be wrong, I said out loud, even though nobody was in the apartment to hear me. I checked the name again. Madison Hale. My Madison. 3 years of my life, Madison. My phone buzzed. Olivia. Hey, did you get something weird in the mail today? She asked before I even said hello. You got one too? Everyone at the office got one. Ryan, is this a joke? Because it doesn't look like a joke. I sat down on the edge of my couch, the invitation still in my hand. It has to be a mistake. Maybe there's another Madison Hale. It's not that rare of a name. Ryan. What? Look at the picture on the front. I flipped it over. My stomach dropped. It was her. Madison, laughing, her hand resting on a man's shoulder. Not my shoulder. Okay, I said slowly. Okay. There's an explanation for this. Is there? Olivia's voice was careful, the way people talk when they already know something you don't. You've been weird about her for months, I said. What do you know that I don't? Silence on the other end. Olivia. I didn't want to say anything without proof, she finally said. I still don't have proof. But Ryan, I've seen her name come up in emails at that hotel event company. Booking things. Dinners. Trips. Things that didn't match what she told you. She told me she was busy with work. I know what she told you. I stood up and walked to the window. Invitation crushed slightly in my fist. Chicago traffic moved below like nothing in the world had changed. But something had. 3 years, Olivia. 3 years, and she never once. I'm not saying it to hurt you. I'm saying it because somebody should have said something a long time ago. After we hung up, I sat with the invitation for a long time. My mind kept dragging me backward, to the beginning, back when none of this seemed possible. I remembered the night I met Madison at a friend's birthday party. She wore red. She laughed at everything I said, even the jokes that weren't funny. I remembered thinking, this is the kind of woman you build a life around. I remembered the sacrifices. Turning down a job offer in Seattle because she didn't want to leave Chicago. Skipping my cousin's wedding because she had an important dinner that weekend. Giving up weekends with my own friends because she said she needed me around more. I gave. She took. And I told myself that was just what love looked like. But there were cracks. I saw them now, lit up like warning signs I'd walked past 100 times. The phone she started locking with a passcode 8 months ago. The business trips that got longer and more frequent. The way she flinched when I mentioned meeting her parents again, like the idea made her nervous instead of excited. The dinner. God, the dinner. Our 3rd anniversary. I'd planned it for weeks. The restaurant, the reservation, even a small ring I'd been saving up for, not to propose yet, just to show her I was serious about our future. She canceled 2 hours before, said she had a family emergency. I remembered comforting her over the phone, telling her family always comes first. I checked the date on the invitation again. My hands went cold. Same date. The exact same date as our canceled anniversary dinner. She hadn't had a family emergency. She'd been with him. No. I whispered, like saying it out loud might undo it. No, there has to be. But there wasn't another explanation. Not anymore. I sat there on my couch, invitation shaking in my grip, my mind racing through 3 years of memories that suddenly all looked different. Every excuse. Every missed call. Every time she said, I love you, like she meant it. Had any of it been real? My phone buzzed again. A text from Madison this time, like she somehow knew I'd already seen the invitation. *K. Did you get my invite? I really hope you can come. It would mean so much to me. Smiling face with smiling eyes *. I stared at the screen, disbelief curling into something colder, something sharper. She wanted me there. At her engagement. To another man. Either she thought I'd never find out who she really was, or she thought I was too weak to do anything about it even if I did. I set the phone down slowly. I'll be there, I said quietly to the empty room, my voice steady in a way that surprised even me. Because if Madison wanted an audience for her new life, she was going to get one. Me. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, scrolling through 3 years of messages, looking for the truth I'd been too afraid to see. It didn't take long to find it. March last year. Madison told me she was at a work conference in Denver. I found a photo buried in an old shared album, her at a rooftop bar, laughing, a man's arm around her waist. Not a coworker's arm, not a friendly arm. I zoomed in. Same face from the invitation. Derek Whitfield. How long? I muttered to myself, clicking through message after message. How long has this been going on? I found a receipt from a hotel in Milwaukee, dated the same weekend she told me she was visiting her sick aunt. I found a string of texts from a number saved only as D. Conversations that stopped and started at strange hours, always deleted a day later except for the ones she forgot to clear. My phone rang. Grace. Hey, I said, my voice flat. Ryan, I saw the invitation. Are you okay? Not really. She hesitated, and something in that pause made my chest tighten. Grace, what do you know? Ryan, just say it. She took a breath. I saw her 6 months ago at that steakhouse downtown, the one near your office. She was with a man, and it didn't look like a business dinner, Ryan. It looked like a date. My hand tightened around the phone. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wasn't sure. And because I didn't want to be the person who blew up your relationship over something I only half saw. I kept hoping I was wrong. You weren't wrong. Silence. I'm sorry, Grace said quietly. I should have told you. I just didn't want to hurt you. You not telling me didn't stop the hurt, Grace. It just delayed it. She didn't argue with that. She couldn't. After we hung up, I called Olivia. I needed someone who wouldn't apologize for the truth, someone who'd just help me find the rest of it. I need to know who this guy is, I told her. Derek Whitfield. Everything you can find. Give me 20 minutes. It took her 12. Okay, she said when she called back. Derek Whitfield, 34, runs an investment firm downtown. Old money family, the kind that donates buildings with their name on them. He met Madison through the hotel event company. She planned some corporate gala for his firm about a year and a half ago. A year and a half, I repeated. That's before the Denver photo. Ryan, this wasn't a one-time slip. This was a whole second life. I closed my eyes. A year and a half. Longer than I wanted to imagine. Longer than any single excuse could cover. I thought about every missed call she waved off with a tired laugh. Every late night she blamed on clients being difficult. Every anniversary, every birthday, every ordinary Tuesday where she'd looked me in the eye and lied without blinking. She let me plan a future with her, I said, mostly to myself. She let me believe in us. I know, Olivia said softly. She was building a life with him the entire time. Ryan, you don't have to go to that party. Nobody would blame you for staying home and letting this die quietly. No. My voice came out harder than I expected. I'm going. Ryan. She invited me because she thinks I'll either not show up or show up and sit quietly like nothing's wrong. She doesn't think I know. So confront her before the party. Privately. Don't put yourself through a room full of strangers. I thought about that for a moment. About the easier path, the quieter path. Then I thought about 3 years of small lies stacked into one enormous one. About Grace staying silent to protect me. About Madison sending that text like she still had the right to my forgiveness. No, I said again. She wanted an audience for her happy ending. She's going to get one. Just not the one she's expecting. What are you going to do? I'm going to that party, Olivia. Invited or not. And I'm going to make sure everyone in that room knows exactly who Madison Hale really is. I stood outside the ballroom doors for almost a full minute before I walked in. I'd picked my navy suit, the one Madison once said made me look like I belonged in rooms like this. Funny, considering she never actually believed that. Inside, the room glowed with soft gold light, string quartet playing somewhere near the back, waiters moving through clusters of people in expensive clothes. A banner above the stage read "Congratulations Madison" and Derek in elegant script. My chest tightened, but I kept my face calm. I'd practiced this in the mirror that morning. Steady eyes, steady breathing, no shaking hands. Sir, may I take your invitation? A young woman at the entrance asked. I handed her the cream-colored card. She glanced at it, smiled, and waved me through without question. I stepped into the party like I had every right to be there. Because I did. I hadn't gone 10 feet before I saw her. Madison stood near the center of the room in a pale blue dress, her hair pinned up the way she used to wear it on our anniversaries. She was laughing at something, champagne glass in hand, until her eyes drifted toward the entrance and landed on me. The laugh died on her face. Her glass tilted slightly, champagne threatening to spill over the rim. She caught herself, straightened. but the color had already drained from her cheeks. "Ryan," she said, voice barely above a whisper as I approached. "You came. You invited me," I said calmly. "I figured that meant you wanted me here." Yes, of course, she glanced around, checking who was watching. "I didn't think you'd actually show up." "Why wouldn't I? It's a big night for you." Her mother appeared beside her almost instantly, like she'd been standing close enough to catch the tension in the air. "Ryan, sweetheart, so good to see you," Vanessa said, her smile sharp and practiced. "Can I get you a drink? The bar's just over there." "I'm fine. Thank you, Mrs. Hale." "You look wonderful." "Doesn't he look wonderful, Madison?" Madison didn't answer. She was still staring at me like she was trying to read whether I knew, and how much. "Ryan, this really isn't the best," Vanessa started. "I just want to congratulate the happy couple," I said, my voice pleasant, almost too pleasant. "Isn't that what you invite people for?" Before Madison could respond, a hand landed warmly on my shoulder from behind. "You must be one of Madison's friends from the design world," a voice said. "I'm Derek Whitfield." I turned and looked at him properly for the first time. Tall, confident, the kind of smile that had never once been told no in his life. "Ryan," I said, shaking his offered hand. "Ryan Cooper." "Cooper," Derek repeated, like the name meant nothing to him. Because it didn't. He had no idea. "Great to meet you, man. Any friend of Madison's is welcome here. She doesn't talk about her old life much, but I know you creative types stick together." "Old life?" I repeated quietly. "You know how it is. Before me." He laughed, easy and careless. "She says the past is the past. Focused on the future now." I glanced at Madison. Her face had gone pale, her eyes wide, silently begging me not to say the words sitting right at the edge of my tongue. "Right," I said instead. "The past is the past. So how do you two know each other?" Derek asked, oblivious, refilling his glass from a passing waiter's tray. "We go way back," I said. 3 years, actually." Madison's hand tightened around her glass. 3 years. Wow. Well, any friend of my future wife is a friend of mine. Derek clapped my shoulder again. "Glad you're here to celebrate with us." "So am I said. Vanessa cleared her throat, clearly sensing the ground was shifting beneath something she couldn't quite name. "Derek, darling, your father is asking for you by the stage." "Duty calls," Derek said with a grin. "Enjoy the party, Ryan. Good to meet you." He walked off, completely unaware that he'd just shaken hands with the man his fiancée had been lying to for 3 years. The moment he was gone, Madison grabbed my arm and pulled me a step away from her mother. "What are you doing here?" she hissed, voice low enough that only I could hear. "Celebrating your engagement. Isn't that what the invitation said?" "Ryan, please, not here, not now." "Madison." I kept my voice calm, steady, even as everything inside me wanted to shake. "I just want a private word with you. That's all." "About what?" "About Denver. About Milwaukee. About every anniversary you canceled for a family emergency that was actually a date with Derek." Her face went white. "You knew," she whispered. "I know everything, Madison. And I think you owe me 5 minutes before I decide what to do with that knowledge in front of your 200 guests." Her eyes darted around the room, at her mother watching from a few feet away, at Derek laughing with his father near the stage, at the banner above us both, glowing gold with our names replaced by someone else's future. "Fine," she said quietly. "Follow me." "Not here." I followed her toward a side hallway, my heart pounding, my hands steady. Whatever happened next, the room was about to remember this night for a very different reason than she'd planned. Madison led me into a small side room, some kind of coat closet turned storage space, string lights piled in a corner, extra chairs stacked against the wall. She shut the door and turned to face me, arms crossed, chin lifted like she was preparing for battle instead of an apology. "Okay," she said. "You know, fine. Can we not do this tonight, of all nights?" "There's no better night, Madison. You made sure of that when you sent me the invitation. I didn't think you'd actually come. You keep saying that like it changes anything." She exhaled sharply, pacing a few steps. "You want to know why? Fine. I'll tell you why. I'm listening. Because Derek can give me a life you never could, Ryan. Do you understand that? He doesn't worry about rent. He doesn't stress over freelance gigs falling through. He has plans, real plans, not some vague dream about opening a design studio someday. So this is about money. It's about stability. It's about not spending my whole life waiting for you to catch up to where I already am. 3 years, Madison. You let me believe we were building something. You let me skip my cousin's wedding. You let me turn down Seattle. I never asked you to do those things. You didn't have to ask. That's what love is supposed to look like. She flinched at that, just barely, but she recovered fast. You're being dramatic, she said. People change. Relationships evolve. I found something better. That's not a crime. Lying for a year and a half isn't a crime. Her mouth opened, then closed. You don't know what you're talking about, she said, but her voice had lost its edge. Don't I? I pulled out my phone and opened the folder Olivia and I had built together over the last 2 days. I turned the screen toward her. March last year. Denver. You told me it was a work conference. I swiped. This photo says otherwise. Her face went pale. Milwaukee, in June. Your sick aunt, remember? Except your aunt lives in Ohio, and this hotel receipt is from a place 4 blocks from Derek's office. Ryan, stop. And this, I said, pulling up the last file, is a voicemail you left me by accident. 8 months ago. You must have but dialed me from dinner. I pressed play. Madison's own voice filled the small room, muffled but clear enough. Asterisk. I know. I just need more time before I tell him. He's not going to take it well, and honestly, Derek, it's easier this way for now. Asterisk. I stopped the recording. Madison stood frozen, tears building in her eyes, but I didn't feel the urge to comfort her the way I once would have. Where did you even get all this? She whispered. It doesn't matter where. What matters is it's real. All of it. Ryan, please, you can't. If this gets out, everything I've built, everything with Derek. You should have thought about that before you built it on lies. The door opened before either of us could say another word. Thomas Reyes stepped inside, calm and composed in his dark suit, a folder tucked under his arm. Ryan, he said, everything all right in here? Madison turned, startled. Who are you? Thomas Reyes. I'm a friend of Ryan's and an attorney. He looked at Madison evenly. Ryan asked me to review some documents, just to make sure everything was handled properly, given the circumstances. Documents? What documents? Financial records showing joint expenses you listed as business costs on shared statements while seeing Mr. Whitfield. Nothing illegal on Ryan's end, of course, but worth having on record. Madison's breathing turned shallow. You brought a lawyer? I brought a friend, I corrected. Who happens to be a lawyer? There's a difference, but I understand why you're confused about what real support looks like. Outside, voices had started rising, guests noticing the tension leaking through the thin walls. Then the door swung open again, harder this time. Derek stood in the doorway, his easy smile completely gone. What is going on in here? He demanded. Madison, people are asking questions out there. Who is this guy really, Madison? Madison's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Derek, I said calmly. I think it's time you learned who your fiancée really spent the last 3 years with while she was planning your future together. What are you talking about? Ask her about March in Denver. Ask her about Milwaukee in June. Ask her why she has a voicemail talking about needing more time before she told him. I nodded toward myself. About you. Derek's face shifted from confusion to something colder, sharper. Madison. His voice had dropped. Is this true? Derek, I can explain. Explain what exactly? His hands clenched at his sides. That you were with another man while I was planning our wedding? Vanessa appeared in the doorway now too, drawn by the commotion, her face pale as she took in the scene. Madison, what is he saying? She asked quietly. Mom, please. You knew? I said, looking at Vanessa. Didn't you? At least suspected. Vanessa's silence answered the question better than any words could have. The room outside had gone quiet, guests drifting closer to the hallway, sensing something had gone terribly wrong behind that door. Madison stood in the middle of it all, tears streaking down her face, the carefully built version of her life collapsing in real time. Derek, please, let's talk about this privately, she begged. There's nothing private left, Derek said flatly. Not anymore. Word moves fast in a room full of 200 people with nothing to do but watch. By the time Derek walked back out into the ballroom, the whispers had already started. I followed a few steps behind with Thomas, and I watched the story spread across the room like spilled wine soaking into fabric. Impossible to stop once it started. Everyone, Derek said, his voice loud enough to cut through the string quartet, still playing obliviously near the stage. The musicians stopped. I think we're done celebrating for tonight. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Derek, Madison said, rushing after him. Please, don't do this in front of everyone. You didn't seem to have a problem doing this in front of everyone, he snapped, gesturing vaguely between us. For over a year, apparently. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think, Madison. I heard the voicemail myself. Vanessa moved toward the center of the room, trying to gather the shredded pieces of the evening. Everyone, please, let's not. There's clearly been some kind of misunderstanding. If we could just... There's no misunderstanding, Mrs. Hale, Derek said, turning to her now. Did you know? Vanessa's silence lasted just a second too long. You knew, Derek said, voice flat with disbelief. You knew, and you let me plan a wedding with her anyway. Derek, I didn't want to believe it either. The engagement is off, he said, loud enough for the entire room to hear. He pulled the ring from his pocket, the one Madison had been wearing proudly all night, and set it down on the nearest table. Congratulations, Madison. You got exactly what you deserve. He walked out without looking back, his family trailing after him, faces tight with quiet fury. The room stood frozen for a moment, 200 guests unsure whether to leave, whisper, or pretend they hadn't just watched someone's entire future collapse in real time. Madison stood alone in the middle of it, mascara streaked down her cheeks, the pale blue dress suddenly looking less like a celebration and more like a costume for a role she no longer had. She looked at me, something desperate in her eyes. Ryan, please. You didn't have to do it like this. You invited me to watch you build a life with someone else, I said quietly. I just made sure everyone understood what that life was actually built on. You've ruined everything. No, Madison. You did that a long time ago. I just stopped pretending not to see it. Olivia appeared at my side then, along with Grace, both of them having pushed through the crowd the moment things started falling apart. Ryan, Olivia said gently, let's go. Grace slipped her arm through mine. You don't need to stand here for this part. I looked at Madison one last time, standing alone under the gold banner that still read congratulations Madison and Derek, the words suddenly meaningless. Goodbye, Madison, I said. I turned and walked out with Olivia on one side and Grace on the other, guests parting to let us through, whispers following every step. Outside, the night air felt sharp and clean against my face. I hadn't realized how long I'd been holding my breath until I finally let it out. You okay? Grace asked. Honestly, I don't know yet. Thomas caught up with us in the parking lot, his expression more serious than I expected. Ryan, that went about as clean as it could have, he said. But I want you thinking clearly about what comes next. What do you mean? Derek's family has serious money, serious connections. Humiliated men like that don't always let things go quietly, even when the humiliation wasn't your fault. You think he'll come after me? I think it's possible his family looks for someone to blame that isn't Madison. And your firm works with clients who move in similar circles. I felt a small knot form in my stomach, one problem replacing another before I'd even had time to breathe. So what do? Tonight? Nothing. Tonight you go home and let this settle. Thomas placed a hand on my shoulder. Tomorrow, we talk strategy. I'll help you protect yourself, professionally and otherwise. That's what friends are for. Olivia nudged my arm. Come on, let's get you home. As we walked to the car, I glanced back once at the venue, lights still glowing gold through the windows. The party Madison had built for herself now sitting in ruins behind her. I felt something unexpected settle over me. Not triumph exactly. Not quite peace either. But for the first time in 3 years, I felt like I was finally walking toward my own life instead of standing quietly inside someone else's lie. 3 weeks after the engagement party, I sat in a small rented office space with my name on the door for the first time in my life. Cooper Design Studio. Simple letters, black on frosted glass, but they felt like the heaviest, most important words I'd ever seen. You did it, Olivia said, standing in the doorway with 2 coffees in hand. You actually did it. Barely, I said, taking the cup she offered. Thomas spent 2 weeks making sure Derek's family couldn't touch any of my old client contracts before I left the firm. How'd that conversation go, by the way? Leaving your old job. Cleaner than I expected. Turns out my manager wasn't thrilled about the client overlap with Whitfield's company either. Guess scandal makes decisions easier for everyone. She smiled and took the seat across from my desk, glancing around at the half-empty shelves, The box is still waiting to be unpacked. It's small, she said, but it's yours. Yeah, I said, looking around slowly. It really is. Grace stopped by later that evening, carrying a small potted plant she insisted every new office needed. For good luck, she said, setting it on the windowsill. And because empty offices feel sad. Thanks, Grace. She studied me for a moment, the way she used to when we were kids, and she could tell something was bothering me before I said a word. How are you doing? She asked. Really? Better than I expected, I admitted. Some days are harder than others. But I'm not lying awake replaying 3 years anymore. That's something. That's a lot, actually. I nodded, appreciating that she didn't try to make it sound bigger than it was. 2 days later, my phone buzzed with a text I didn't expect. Asterisk Madison, can we talk? Please, asterisk. I stared at the message for a long moment, feeling nothing like the panic or longing I might have felt months ago. Just a quiet, steady calm. I called her instead of texting back. Ryan. She answered immediately, voice small. Thank you for calling. What do you need, Madison? I wanted to say I'm sorry. Really sorry. Derek's family is spreading things around town. My job let me go from the event company because of the publicity, and I keep thinking about everything I lost. I'm sorry that happened to you, I said, and I meant it, even if it surprised me to feel that way. Do you think? Is there any chance we could? No, Madison. The silence on the other end stretched long enough that I almost thought the call had dropped. I'm not saying that to hurt you, I continued. I'm saying it because I finally understand what I actually deserve. And it isn't someone who spent 1.5 years deciding whether I was worth being honest with. I made a mistake. You made a lot of mistakes over a long time. That's different from one bad moment. I know, she whispered. I know that now. I hope things get better for you, Madison. I really do. But I'm not the person who's going to help you find your way back to comfortable. Okay, she said quietly. Okay. Goodbye, Ryan. Goodbye, Madison. I set the phone down on my desk and sat there for a moment, waiting for the familiar ache to rise up in my chest. It didn't come. Instead, I felt something closer to relief, the kind that settles into your bones after finally putting down something heavy you'd been carrying for far too long. Olivia knocked on the open door a few minutes later. You looked deep in thought. Madison called. Her eyebrows rose. And I told her no. Calmly. No yelling, no falling apart. Just no. How do you feel? I thought about that question honestly before answering. Lighter. She smiled and leaned against the doorframe. Good. You've earned lighter. That night, I stayed late at the office, finishing the last of my first independent client project, string lights from Grace's plant reflecting softly against the window glass. I thought about the man I'd been 3 years ago, so eager to shrink himself down to fit into someone else's plans that he'd forgotten to build any of his own. I thought about the invitation that started everything, the one I almost convinced myself was a mistake. It hadn't been a mistake. It had been the beginning of finally seeing clearly. Madison chased security and status and lost both. I chased honesty, even when it cost me comfort, and somehow ended up with more peace than I'd felt in years. I turned off the office lights, locked the door behind me, and walked out into the cool night air, steady on my feet in a way I hadn't been in a very long time. Whatever came next, I was building it myself. And for the first time in 3 years, that felt like more than enough.